Yo, crypto week in Washington has just ended with Donald Trump sending a huge Bitcoin warning to the rest of the world. Bitcoin has been violently chopping around this week as we saw a lot of flip-flopping from politicians. I mean, we had three major pieces of legislation in Congress, but Donald Trump is finally signaling that these bills are going to be signed into office later today. It's a huge win for our industry. And again, we now have confirmation that Bitcoin can be cleared to fly higher as trillions of dollars of sideline capital now will have the confidence to enter the market now that there is absolute regulatory clarity. So massive news. But before we get into the details of all that, I do want to bring up our guest. We got James from Stamp Seed Hammer Time, baby, joining us on the show today. We're going to be talking about the Stamp Seed later during the culture segment. Let's jump straight into today's news segment. So Opti and I are streaming live from New York City. We actually had the honor of being able to be part of the HIVE closing bell ceremony at the NASDAQ, which was absolutely surreal. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. So forgive our background, but let's jump straight into today's news. U.S. House passes three key crypto bills ahead of August recess. It goes on to say, after delays in Congress over Republican concerns with central bank digital currencies, the U.S. House of Representatives has passed three pieces of crypto legislation. In a Thursday House session, lawmakers voted 294 to 134 to pass the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, a bill aimed at establishing a market structure for cryptocurrencies. 308 to 122 in favor of guiding and establishing national innovation for U.S. stablecoins, the so-called Genius Act, and 219 to 210 for the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act. That's one that I really want to focus on. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Almost 80 Democrats voted yes for the Clarity Act and more than 100 for the Genius Act, with the bills having been expecting to move through the chamber before Congress breaks in August recess. Republicans have been calling for everyone in their party to support the bills as part of the Crypto Week plans, a nod to U.S. President Donald Trump's stated intention to enact his crypto agenda quickly. However, on Wednesday, voting on consideration of a package, including the three bills, stalled for hours after some Republicans held out for a carve-out to ban the development of a CBDC in the U.S. Many involved with crypto lauded the passage of the three bills as a win for the industry, though the anti-CBDC legislation, which received the least support from Democrats, could remain a contentious partisan issue. Former CFTC member and current Blockchain Association CEO Summer Mergzinger said the vote on the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act suggested support for privacy, market competition, and individual financial freedom. Prior to Thursday's vote, California Representative Maxine Waters has been calling for all Democrats to oppose all three bills in response to Republicans' Crypto Week branding. Waters held an anti-crypto corruption week press conference and issued statements warning of corruption by the Trump administration. Again, it goes in one ear, goes out the other. Like we had the Doge thing coming in earlier on this year, and the amount of things that were found with USAID and the amount of capital that was being misallocated. When I hear corruption and politicians, it just sounds like they're just anything that's anti-crypto. That's what I see, or anti-Bitcoin. It goes on to say, quote, the Republican crypto bills we will consider will create giant loopholes in our federal financial laws that put consumers and investors at risk in the name of innovation. How about the risk that investors and consumers have due to inflation and currency debasement? Why don't we talk about that? Anyways, it continues to say, these bills would increase the chance of another costly financial crisis like the one in 2008 that led to trillions of dollars of wealth being wiped out in the name of innovation. Oh, let's talk about 2008, shall we? I love 2008. I love 2009. That's exactly when Bitcoin was born or discovered, depending on how you want to look at it. You know what happened during 2008 and 2009? And you can't blame it on the opposing party, because we had a progressive president who I voted for, by the way, right? Who promised hope and change. But what really happened was that Main Street bailed out Wall Street. The federal government started the quantitative easing experiment, and they bailed out all the big banks. Even though if this was a normal free market, what would happen is the banks that were over leveraged, the banks that made bad decisions, would go out of business. The market would reset, and the market would correct itself, and you would have more efficient banks. You would have better run banks. The idea of something being too big to fail, that is not based on free market capitalism, right? So again, the excuses by this specific representatives, I'm calling BS, because I remember 2008. I remember all the inefficiencies that were found by the Doge team going in there, right? I think there was someone who was 316 years old that was collecting Social Security checks. So again, I don't want to hear about corruption. I just don't want to hear about it, right? There's two standards here. Like, if you're coming from a place of, okay, we have a clean track record, we're fighting for transparency and anti-corruption. Okay, I would listen to you. But I'm sorry, I've been around the block. I've been around the block a couple times, experienced this for the last 15 years, and I'm just not buying it at this point. I think, my opinion, the Warren camp, they're against Bitcoin because they want a CBDC. That's what it comes down to. And the most troubling thing out of all of this is the absolute partisanship regarding the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act. That to me is very, very troubling, right? And what I'm looking at this like basically how the House is divided on whether to move a central bank digital currency forward in the United States of America, following in the footsteps of the CCP of China. Like that's not a good thing, right? So we obviously have a solution to this. Bitcoiners make up a bigger and bigger voting bloc. It's not about Republican or Democrat. I want to say that. I want to emphasize that. Vote for candidates that are pro-Bitcoin, anti-CBDC. It doesn't matter the party. Just say, are you pro-Bitcoin? Are you anti-Bitcoin? Are you anti-CBDC? Are you pro-CBDC? And then vote the people out that are pro-CBDC. Because I don't want to live in a CBDC future here in the U.S. But anyways, going back on track, huge win, 3 massive bills that were passed. Apparently they're going to be signed, or at least the Genius Act is going to be signed into law today. That is a huge win for the stablecoin industry. And again, it gives, this is how I started the beginning of the show, it basically gives a giant rubber stamp of approval saying that, look, guys, Bitcoin and the digital assets industry is here to stay. And what I've been saying for many, many months now is that I believe that stable coins are a Trojan horse for Bitcoin. It gets people exposed to digital wallets. It gets people exposed to handling money without using a bank account. That's just one stepping stone from, starting to use Bitcoin. So here is Donald Trump, and he posts this on his Truth Social account, and he says, big signing at 2:30 in the White House. Congratulations to our great Republicans for being able to accomplish so much, a record in so short a period of time. All the Democrats do is complain and criticize and get nothing done. They're the party of the past. I'm not going to comment on that. On the second part, again, Simply Bitcoin's stance is vote for people, regardless of whether they're Republican or Democrat, that are pro-Bitcoin, anti-CBDC. Simple as that. Don't get stuck in the partisanship. That's how they divide us. Anyways, I want to read you guys MTG's take MTG has been very vocal about specific parts of this bill. Also want to show you guys this picture. Here's Brian Armstrong, the CEO of America's largest quote-unquote Bitcoin and altcoin exchange, and he looks like he's walking through the halls of Congress, and he says he's heading to the White House to see the Genius Act become law, the official start of the financial revolution in the U.S. Thanks to all who helped us take this huge step for the crypto economy. So here's MTG, and she says, this week, Congress passed crypto legislation. The American people hardly have any idea what it is, what it means, and what passed. The Genius Act. She said she voted no. It passed the Senate and the House and will be signed into law today. The bill regulates stablecoins, but provides for the backdoor centralized bank digital or CBDCs. The Federal Reserve has been planning a CBDC for years, and this will open the door to move you to a cashless society and into digital currency that can be weaponized against you by an authoritarian government controlling your ability to buy and sell. Do you actually trust your government to never do that to you? I don't. So again, I'm a little bit, this is where I stand. A stable coin is in the hands of a private entity. A private entity controls the stable coins. The government can put pressure on that private entity to freeze the account, right? And they do that all the time with Tether and with Coinbase's USDC. So that does happen already. But I would say stable coins are significantly better than a CBDC, because the CBDC, you would have a direct relationship with the government. So like the government acts as your checking account. That is dystopian as hell. So MTG has reservations regarding the Genius Act. I disagree with her there. Now her stance on the Anti-CBDC Act is quite interesting. So the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act, she voted yes. The bill passed the House, but we were all told all week that it will not pass the Senate because the Senate does not have any path to get all 60 votes to ban a CBDC. Remember, they need a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. It's not just a simple majority. And the pro-Bitcoin candidates only really hold 54. Let me say this better. The anti-CBDC candidates only really hold about 52, 53 Senate seats. So it's not enough to get to that 60 vote threshold. This bill prohibits Federal Reserve banks from issuing a central bank digital currency. It's a good bill and protects your money, but it will not get past the Senate. However, this should be people's highest demand. I completely agree with that last statement. We've been saying that. See, maybe MTG watches Simply Bitcoin. Anyways, number 3, the Clarity Act. I voted yes for self-custody protections. Absolutely love that. The bill passed the House and will likely get some changes in the Senate, then have to come back to the House for another vote before it can get signed by the president and become law. The bill establishes a detailed regulatory framework for digital assets and allocates authority between the CFTC and the SEC. The most important thing that needs to remain is protecting people's self-custody of their digital currency. This is yet to be seen and should be demanded. I will vote no when it comes back if self-custody protections are taken out. 100% agree with this. And she goes on to say, in 1971, we were taken off the gold standard to cash, which was a ridiculous decision and has weakened our dollar tremendously. Now we're on the path to move from cash you can hold in your hand, hide from your, that's the representative saying that, and save for yourself and your family to a digital currency system where your ability to buy and sell will ultimately be held in digital accounts that you cannot tangibly hold yet are at the will of those who control the banks and the government. Now, this is where I think MTG is missing the plot a little bit, because this is what Bitcoin fixes. Bitcoin fixes these things, right? You don't have to rely on a bank. You don't have to rely on a government. So, but I do support with her general messages regarding self-custody, the importance of protecting self-custody. I do agree with her in regards to, yes, This is not negotiable. An anti-CBDC bill has to get passed. This was part of Trump's executive order that was mentioned in the beginning of the year. We do not want a CBDC in the United States. They're doing it in Europe. They're doing it in China. Following China is not a good example. It's time to try something new, but it doesn't seem like MTG is fully educated on Bitcoin, because if she was, she'd be advocating for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin fixes this stuff, right? You can use peer-to-peer money that's in self-custody, and you don't have to ask a bank or the government for permission. That is what Bitcoin is all about. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this? Huge wins across the board for our industry. What's your take, man?
Yeah, well, first of all, on just that MTG tweet, it is very interesting to see politicians talking almost the Bitcoin book. You know, we've come a long way in the last couple of years where it does seem like politicians are trying to, at the very least, understand what is going on over here. The fact she's talking about self-custody is, I think, very interesting. And, of course, anti-CBDC, which is what we constantly talk about here on the show. So I think it's good baby steps just in that general direction. Obviously, we need more politicians, I think, to really understand what's going on here and what Bitcoin is. But it is kind of, I think, a sign of the times when you see MTG kind of at least trying to explain what's going on here in a way that is almost viable for us Bitcoiners. So I love to see that. Still some work to do. On the bills passing, you know, it was crypto week. This whole week has been, as we kind of were saying, a bit flip-floppy. You know, it seemed like they weren't going to pass. Then somehow, you know, they whipped everyone together and then it went through. It's going to get signed later today. Again, you guys know my takes on stablecoins. I'm a Bitcoiner. I like Bitcoin. And I want to see more stuff protecting us as Bitcoiners personally. But as we've been covering here on the show for a long time, this was kind of where we knew they were going to start, is with stablecoins. But I think the main signal here, though, for, you know, the Bitcoiners here, us and everyone in the chat, is that this is signaling to the world now that, you know, the green light has been lit. Institutions are probably going to be more comfortable coming into the space. And obviously now the nation state race around Bitcoin and Bitcoin legislation is, you know, it is happening. There's a fork in the road here. It's been cemented. It's, you know, it's a law now. So now everyone around the world has to take Bitcoin very seriously. I'm sure we will see kind of a domino effect of other countries following very soon, or maybe they'll follow Europe here and they'll do the complete opposite. Who knows? We all know what happens when the Trump administration does anything. You see some countries that basically, you know, metaphorically shoot themselves in the foot with their legislation just to spite Trump here. So I think this will most likely be a benefit to the Bitcoin industry, because now, of course, more capital will flow into our industry because they feel more comfortable with it. So I think it's a good, you know, good first step. I want to see some more stuff here. I like what MTG was saying. You know, I want to see, not that I necessarily think the government needs to codify it into law to protect self-custody, because all you need to do to protect yourself is literally take your Bitcoin into self-custody. But I do like the general trend here that we're seeing. Now, I just hope more politicians follow suit.
Absolutely. James, what are your thoughts on this, man? Crypto week in the House, in Congress, man. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing. Last year, our industry was under attack. Now we're here. We're having some pro-Bitcoin legislation. I mean, it seems like we're winning. We have to remain vigilant. Is that the word? Vigilant. Thank you. We have to remain vigilant, because again, I think MTG would hit the nail on the head there when she did her analysis on the CBDC bill and her analysis on self-custody. But again, it seems like our industry is being embraced. We experienced this yesterday, where we were in the heart of American capitalism. We were at the NASDAQ market, and essentially we were with one of the largest Bitcoin mining companies in the world, and they were being embraced by traditional finance. So we are witnessing this. We're seeing this on the regulatory level. We're seeing this in the traditional financial markets. Bitcoin is growing up. James, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, it's like the hot thing in the space for politicians and corporations right now. And look how far we've come in the past. These were times we wished we were at, and here we are. But to kind of go through sort of like that Genius Act in general, and some of the points that Marjorie brought up. My fear with something like, well, stablecoins are good or they're bad, right? Because they could either be the stepping stone to Bitcoin or it could either be a stepping stone into a CBDC, which obviously nobody wants. And, if I think back on the way this country is built here in the United States, it's built by entrepreneurs, innovators, the railroad system, for instance. Things are basically built here by individuals and then they're hijacked by the government. They place their people in or they regulate the shit out of it. Sorry. Or, it's basically feels like they kind of let someone else build it and they come and take it over. So with something like a stable coin being run by, a private entity, I feel like it could eventually to the point where a CBDC framework is built in and then people are also at a mass level used to using the wallets and using all that hardware. Obviously you want them to lean to Bitcoin, but it could they're going to be trusting still. Most people are still going to be trusting what these politicians might be saying, or take the easier way out. So I don't know how I feel about that one. It could really go one way or the other. Like I always like to remain skeptical with anything that looks like it's going to be good for Bitcoin and good for the space. Like part of me is always just like, well, it could be the bad part about it. So the bad part about it could be a gateway into CBDCs, which we don't want. The other part of it, self-custody, we want to protect as much as possible, of course. Core value of mine and of anyone should be, to if you're going to buy Bitcoin and hold it, you should actually own that Bitcoin and hold it yourself in self custody, cold storage, hold your private keys, obviously, stamp those into metal to keep them fireproof and everything proof virtually. But without self custody being embraced, Bitcoin can't fully be embraced properly. So I think that language should be in the Clarity Act as much as possible, because we want people who are new to the space or who haven't even have coins yet to not be afraid of self custody. It could obviously be a very daunting thing. You're basically taking all the responsibility. It's highly technical for some, where they view it that way, and it's just something people aren't used to. Most people are too used to trusting the banks, trusting the institutions. Take that off my plate. I'll let a financial advisor tell me everything. I trust them more than I trust myself. Bitcoin flips that script and enables you to control everything because you know exactly what you hold, and essentially it's your value that grows over time. So self-custody being part of that message is good, because people need to stop when they read that and understand what that is. You know, it's
Absolutely.
obviously we know we could hold Bitcoin in self-custody, but the millions of other people, tens of millions of other people that aren't in yet need to know that too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the only way to reclaim back your financial sovereignty is by holding your Bitcoin in self-custody. And again, I'm really glad that MTG's on top of this. And she's like saying like, look, that's a good thing. That bill offers protections. Also, another thing too, that, I find quite quite a relief is the fact that there is bipartisanship support of the Genius Act and the Clarity Act. Where I find it a little bit troubling is the lack of bipartisan support on the CBDC stuff. Like, we should all be on the same page there. Central banking has been a disaster. It does not worked out. If you're in the younger generations, it's basically robbed your future, your ability to buy a home. You're not living better than your parents, even though productivity has increased, even though technology has increased. The biggest world wars happened under the century of central banking, right? I would say one of the main drivers of wealth inequality is central banking itself. So this hasn't worked out. It's not working. It's time to try something new. Anyone who's been living on a Bitcoin standard for a couple years now knows that your life gets progressively cheaper over time. Things around you get cheaper. And as Jeff Booth likes to make the case, that's the natural state of the free market. That's how the free market should operate. The only thing is that Bitcoin is the only thing that is not able to be manipulated. So because it's not able to be manipulated, it actually shows what the natural state of the free market is doing, which is everything around you is becoming deflationary, as it should be. because of the technological innovations and productivity innovations. Productivity has increased dramatically since the 1970s, but compensation has remained relatively flat. Why? It's fiat money. It's the manipulation and the control of money. And this is what Bitcoin fixes. It's time to try something new. CBDCs is a continuation of fiat. We don't want that here. So make your voices heard. Bitcoiners are a huge voting demographic, and we're just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as a voting bloc. It's not about red or blue. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about voting pro-Bitcoin, anti-CBDC. Again, vote pro-Bitcoin, anti-CBDC. The midterms are coming up in 2026. You guys have to keep your eyes peeled, and remember to vote for the candidate that is supporting your own interests, or just put it bluntly, vote for the candidate that is supporting your bags. Anyways, I do want to give a very, very special shout out to our lead sponsor, BitcoinWell.com. BitcoinWell.com is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. The reason we like BitcoinWell.com is that it's an automatic self-custody Bitcoin on-ramp. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on BitcoinWell, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos, because after all, self-custody is how you reclaim back your sovereignty. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/simply or scan the QR code today. And the reason you want to use that URL is because if you use that URL, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin wishing well, which we're going to be doing live for you guys right now. Every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn points, and you can use those points to a variety of different prizes, or you can go to bitcoinwell.com/simply by scanning the QR code or going to the URL directly. And you get 3 tosses into the wishing well. Every single toss, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats. We're going to do a live demonstration for you guys right now. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code today has won 578 sats. Again, if you go to bitcoinwell.com/simply, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well. And if you're a higher net worth individual looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, and you want a white glove service, again, you buy the Bitcoin and it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address within 24 hours. You have to check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers. We have tons to talk about. We will be right back in just a second. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. Everybody, scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to the stampseed.com website and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. Imagine 50 years from now when you're old and you're gray and you want to pass on your Bitcoin to your loved ones, but You lost it because you wrote down your seed phrase on paper, and paper doesn't last 50 years. You know what lasts 50 years? Titanium. Go to stampseed.com today. Use promo code Simply. 50% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $117,440. Block height, 906,110 sats per dollar. 851 sats per dollar. Market cap, 2.34 trillion. That worked. Two people scanned the QR code. Market cap, 2.34 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 9.91%. Decline from all-time high, negative 4.6%. Realized monetary inflation 0.85%. All right, everybody, in the grand scheme of things, we're just getting started. I want to find out what the F is happening with this number because it went down to like 0.83%, dude. We were covering it a couple months ago. And now it's back up. So is Bitcoin's inflation rate? Does Bitcoin have a central banker? We got to call Yellow, bro.
Can we talk to Satoshi, please?
We gotta call Yellow and lower the rates. Anyways, so before we play a video of Frank Corva at the White House, we had, and shout out to Bitcoin Magazine, of course, our friends over at BMag, and shout out to David Bailey and Frank Corva. We have a Bitcoin journalist at the White House in the press room, and he was able to ask the press secretary a question regarding Bitcoin and taxes, specifically for smaller purchases. He got a response. It was interesting. We're going to play you guys that clip, but before we do that, I do want to show you guys where me and Opti were yesterday, because I give a shout out to Luke and Sophie for filling in, but Opti and I were literally at the NASDAQ in suits with Simply Bitcoin pins. And shout out to the HIVE Digital team, HIVE Digital Tech, for inviting us. It was their 4-year anniversary of being listed as a publicly traded company. They're the first publicly traded Bitcoin mining company. Shout out to the executive chairman, Frank Holmes. Shout out to Nathan Fass. And shout out to their CEO, Aiden, and the rest of the HIVE Digital Tech team. And it was pretty crazy. We were in the room when they're ringing the bell. We were part of the ceremony. This is me and Opti literally on Times Square on a giant jumbotron in front of
50 feet tall, guys.
50 feet tall. It was pretty crazy. And then we stood there. Unfortunately, me and Opti were always in the corners, but we were in these pictures. So when the official pictures come out, we were there. We were on like live TV on the CNBC at 4 p.m. when the closing bell, and it was pretty crazy. So again, shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. They're going to be expanding rapidly over the next 6 months, so you definitely want to go check them out. They're listed on NASDAQ. Their ticker symbol is HIVE, H-I-V-E. So anyways, I wanted to give a shout out to that. That's why me and Opti missed the show yesterday. But no more delay. I want to play you guys this clip of Frank Corva, Bitcoin Magazine's political correspondent, and he had a question for the White House press secretary.
We'll get to questions. Here in our new media seat, we have Frank Corva, who's the White House correspondent for Bitcoin Magazine, which comes at a timely week with crypto legislation moving across Capitol Hill. So why don't you kick us off, Frank, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Ms. Levitt.
Sure.
I was curious to hear if the president was in favor of removing any and all language around central bank digital currencies from the Genius Act, maybe as a means to get it across the line and get it on his desk. And then my second question was about something the president spoke about in this room. He talked about a $600 de minimis tax exemption for Bitcoin and other crypto spending. So I was just wondering if you could comment on those.
Sure. Well, the president did signal his support for a de minimis exemption for crypto, and the administration continues to be in support of that. We are definitely receptive to it to make crypto payments easier and more efficient for those who seek to use crypto as simple as buying a cup of coffee. Of course, right now that cannot happen, but with the de minimis exemption, perhaps it could in the future, and we will continue to explore legislative solutions to accomplish that. As for the central bank digital currency and the Genius Act, which you noted has passed through Congress and will be sent to the president's desk. I believe the House is voting on it. If they haven't, they should be passing it. We know we have the votes, and we expect get to the president's desk, and we are planning a signing ceremony tomorrow afternoon. All of you will get more details on that. This piece of legislation is going to make America the crypto capital of the world, and that's what the president promised. As for a central bank digital currency, the president opposes that. He made that promise to the American people on the campaign, and while it's not in this specific piece of legislation, he did sign a January executive order banning a central bank digital currency. The administration supports Congress's efforts to codify that executive order into law, and I believe there will be future pieces of legislation in regards to crypto that will be moving through Capitol Hill. The president looks forward to signing them, and he looks forward to the signing ceremony this afternoon. So thank you for being with us today. Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just witnessed history, and Opti and I kind of did this on purpose. You had a Bitcoin journalist at the White House, and you had Bitcoin journalists at the NASDAQ, literally.
Is that what we are?
You know, this is what's happening. Like, Bitcoin is winning. Wall Street, the White House, like, this is insane. Like, I cannot believe this is happening. I'm getting chills just saying this, right? So yes, we're in the White House, we're on Wall Street. You know, this is Bitcoin media, and it's there. It's being taken seriously. Opti and I did an interview on the terrace of the NASDAQ yesterday. Frank Corva was in the press secretary room at the White House, and he literally said Bitcoin Magazine, right? So we're in the room. We're being taken very, very seriously. Why is that happening? We are extremely influential, and we represent a very large and well-funded voting bloc. That's why. If you're not in the room, you're not in the deal. We are in the room now. This is what is happening, right? We've crossed that chasm, which is surreal for me and Opti. I mean, in the beginning, we were demonized. We were attacked, like, from the media, from TradFi, from everywhere. Now, essentially, we're just being let in, right? Which is fantastic, you know? Again, and I have to give credit where credit is due. Shout out to Bitcoin Magazine for making that possible. And of course, shout out to Hive Digital Technologies, Nathan Fass, Frank Holmes, and Aiden for the invitation yesterday. Dude, it's absolutely surreal. Now, going back to the comments from the press secretary, regarding the piece of legislation that's being signed. So the first big legislation that's being signed is the Genius Act. So that's the Stablecoin Act. The other piece of legislation that it will most likely be signed into law is the Clarity Act, which it supposedly is going to protect the right to self-custody, which is fantastic. Now, the one where, again, it doesn't seem like they have enough votes in the Senate is the Anti-CBDC Act. And the reason that's so important is there's only so much Trump can do via executive order. Why? So under his administration, the United States will not roll out a CBDC. But if you get an opposing administration that is pro-CBDC, they can tap on the shoulder of the Fed and they say, hey, keep that going. Now, supposedly, they can't roll that out without approval from Congress. So they might be gridlocked as well, right? But what I will say is that the Fed, and we're going to cover this during the news, and I did an interview with Caitlin Long, so I could confidently say this because it's on Bloomberg now, and Caitlin Long is saying it. The Fed is not acting independently. They're acting extremely politically. What they did to our industry last year was nuts from a regulatory perspective, right? And if you just think about incentives, right? If the future of your institution is a CBDC, would you be happy or, in lockstep with the party that is anti-CBDC? No. You would probably act politically to ensure your survival. So it makes sense that they're acting politically. But the Fed has no right to act politically. They're an independent institution, and their only responsibility is to make sure that unemployment is low and that inflation is low. That's it. They're not supposed to act politically, right? So just because your institution is at risk because there's a better technology that has figured out how to disintermediate money and make it better doesn't give you the right to act politically, right? So anyhow, we have to stay on top of this. The midterms are coming up. Vote for pro-Bitcoin, anti-CBDC candidates. The party does not matter. Their positions on Bitcoin and CBDCs are what matter. And you have to ask yourself, what future do you want your children to live in? Do you want your children to live in a future of CBDCs, or do you want your children to live in a future of Bitcoin, which is a future of hope, peace, and prosperity? Opti, what's your take?
Yeah, hold on. As the chat saying, yes, we're literally on like a tiny bench. I'm super uncomfortable right now.
We're literally in a tiny hotel room in New York City. We'll fly back to Miami later today. But we wanted to do. We
got to do a show.
We had to do a show.
Anyways, that's besides the point. First of all, huge shout out to Frank Corva and of course the Bitcoin Magazine team. As Nico's been saying, we've been saying this on the show for a long time. What's your favorite saying? If you're not in the room, then
you're not in the deal.
Then you're not in the deal. And it is, again, very surreal to just see Frank Corva. You know, we've hung out with Frank at the conferences. He's an awesome Bitcoiner, doing great work over at Bitcoin Magazine, and now he's literally at the White House asking questions. Like it's insane in like the best way possible. And like Nico was saying, the fact that what's their press secretary? That's her name, official title?
Yeah.
The fact that it's the press secretary, you know, responding to a Bitcoiner in the room, like I think this is one of those huge pivotal moments. And moving forward, I think as we've been saying for a long time, you know, Bitcoiners are everywhere, and now they have to take us very seriously. Now, the coincidences of us over at NASDAQ yesterday, it was surreal for us to walk through the halls and, you know, see everything and partake in the closing bell ceremony, checking out the studio and all that stuff. It is interesting that they happen basically on the same day, Nico. That is kind of a crazy coincidence, if you believe in coincidences, right, Nico? But yeah, I think this is what we've been saying for a long time. You know, Bitcoin media is taking over the world, and somehow all of us, just content creators, you know, Twitter shit posters, somehow we are in some of the highest rooms, highest levels possible. Like Nico and I literally felt out of place yesterday. We're like, how did we end up here? What are we doing here? I'm sure Frank had a similar vibe when he's at the White House. Like, how did I get here? I was just talking about Bitcoin, but
Frank Corva.
What did I say?
It said Frank.
Oh yeah, Frank Corva. Yeah, sorry, at Bitcoin Mag at the White House. Like, how did I end up here? I just talked about Bitcoin. It's crazy, guys. Like, this is, I think, a sign of the times of where we're going. And as we're seeing with the legislation that's being passed, like, you know, take what we're doing here very seriously, because we do have a lot of momentum behind us, and I think it's only going to increase.
James, what are your thoughts, man?
Oh, man, before I get into it, I heard you say something about the Federal Reserve not getting political. Do you mean they're not part of the government? Is that really the case? I had no idea. No, that's just wild. But sorry, seeing you guys out, that was crazy. I saw you tweet out that you were at NASDAQ. It's just wild to me, man. It's surreal is the best way to put it. You know, we're on the main stage. It's that big, and it's kind of like a pinch me moment. I'm happy for you guys and happy for Bitcoin. It's just wild. And those lapel pins that you guys have on those suits, I noticed you've had those like for a few months now. So, you know, I think you guys are kind of planning for this. That matches those suits really well. You know, you might have to throw those things on a lot more in the
I
near
think
future,
so.
I
We
guess. I don't know.
ordered the plans, but we
totally didn't plan them for the suit.
You manifested it, I think, something, man.
I've done in a suit. The first one was with Lummis earlier on in
Show him the pin.
I don't have it.
Oh, he took it off. Wow. What a rug pull.
I don't have it on.
No, wine.
So,
I have one.
Sophie,
well, now the audience
throw
can't
us
see,
one
but
of the
wine
pins?
gave me one in Vegas.
But no, yeah. So
It's a good look.
Appreciate
It's a good
it,
look.
James.
Yeah, no, but it's pretty cool. And then Frank Corva
Yeah.
at the White House, like divide and conquer with Bitcoin in the belly of the beasts between those two. So just a great day, and I hope to see more of it. You know, hope to see you guys out there.
Yeah,
more.
man.
It's pretty wild. I can't get anyone in my family or any of my friends to buy Bitcoin, but you know, you guys are mainstream at this point. You know, maybe it'll click at some point.
It's crazy.
You know?
It's crazy just being kind of and this year too for Simply, like you know, we had our first interview in DC with Senator Lummis, And that was crazy walking the halls of Congress. Again, Bitcoin media doing this, right? The fact that Bitcoin media, simultaneously on the same day at the White House, Bitcoin Magazine, doing live coverage, and then Bitcoin media, at the NASDAQ doing coverage as well. Here's one of the pins. Here's the orange one with the lighting's a little bit weird. That I don't believe that's a major coincidence, bro, that's happening, simultaneously. And I do want to give a shout out, to give a shout out and credit where credit is due. Thank you so much to the Hive team for having us, Frank Holmes, Bulldog Holmes, Iden, and of course Nathan Fast and Holly and Tiffany. Thank you guys so much for having us. Hive is an incredible company. They're scaling super fast. Go check out their ticker, HIVE, on the NASDAQ. And, of course, give a shout-out to Bitcoin Magazine, David Bailey, and Frank Corva for making that happen at the White House as well. Anyways, guys, we're going to hit the news. We have tons to cover. We will be right back in just 1 second.
I want to give a shout-out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Cold Card. If you're serious about self-custody, Cold Card is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. There is no second best. The Cold Card Q is the ultimate air-gapped Bitcoin signing device, complete with a full keyboard, large screen, camera, NFC support, and much more. Do you prefer something sleeker? The MK4 is trusted by hardcore Bitcoiners around the world. Both are built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, secure and open source. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 5% off with promo code SIMPLY. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today with Cold Card.
All right, everybody. Before we move on to the news segment, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Cold Card. Guys, check out the Cold Card Q. Check this out. It's beautiful, man. It comes in different colors. It comes in blue, purple, green, red, black. I like the black one. Black one looks badass. Glow in the dark. But a lot of people like the orange one. Obviously, Bitcoin orange. This is one of the best Bitcoin hardware wallets in the game right now, completely open source. They make it see-through on purpose to make sure that no one has been messing around with your hardware. It bricks if you get a certain amount of combinations wrong, pin combinations wrong, right? Guys, you got to store your Bitcoin properly, take self-custody. Scan the QR code on your screen, use promo code SIMPLY, get 5% off, and get yourself a Cold Card Q. Head over to coldcard.com today and the QR code. All right, everybody, talking about the Fed being independent. Absolutely love this. We got yellow in the chat. Do we have any yellow soundboards anymore? I think we do. There it is.
Malaga, don't stop believing. Huddle to that feeling. No.
Perfect. Welcome, Yellow. Good to see you in the chat. Anyways, so let's talk about this. The Fed independent. This isn't Nico. Dude, it's like as if Bloomberg watches Simply Bitcoin. Tomorrow's Bitcoin news today. We've been saying this for months. We got this so effing right. We got this right. We got this right. Did we not get this right?
I mean, it wasn't like the, craziest prediction. It's pretty obvious. But yes, we did get it right.
No, we got it months before Legacy Media started reporting on it, dude.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, no, I'm just saying, if you look at the data, this is exactly the case.
Yeah, but I mean, and now JP Morgan is even saying it, right? Now even a big bank,
Guys, we're sitting so close because there's literally a tiny bench in this hotel room.
We're literally.
Let's get past that. All right, read the article.
We're in a tiny hotel room in New York City. We haven't flown back yet from yesterday's event. But anyway, check out this article from Bloomberg confirming what me and Opti have been saying again. Simply Bitcoin, tomorrow's Bitcoin news today. Fed independence is a myth. Let's check it out. The idea that the Federal Reserve operates free from political pressure is a myth, and U.S. stocks are likely to keep soaring on bets that interest rate cuts are coming. What's currently unfolding before our eyes has been happening for decades behind closed doors. It goes on to say, he drew parallels to President Lyndon Johnson's clashes with Fed Chairman Bill Martin in 1965. The JP Morgan analyst said, investors will start focusing on policies of the next Fed chair as it becomes clear that Jerome Powell's term as Fed chair is coming to an end. He's recommending clients stay long on the S&P 500 and VIX index in a twin bet that investors will put more money in risky assets like crypto and AI, and that volatility will intensify because of the uncertainty around tariffs, inflation, and the Fed. The complacency will continue to build up without derailing the rally. It goes on to say the question over the Fed's independence has been thrust into the spotlight after Trump took his pressure campaign against Powell to a new level on Wednesday before quickly backpedaling. Analysts have warned that if Trump were to oust Powell, it would roil in financial markets and lead to a serious legal showdown. What's happening for everyone to see is definitely damaging for the institution. But let's be honest, the Fed independence is a myth. He pointed to a famous confrontation between Johnson and Martin in December 1965, when Johnson called Martin and other Fed officials to his Texas ranch to complain that raising rates would hamstring the economy. At the time, Martin refused to back down. Top executives at JP Morgan, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs have stressed the importance of the Fed's autonomy. To be sure, changes to U.S. interest rates requires the support of a majority of the Federal Open Market Committee, so any new chair will have to win over his colleagues with the case for lowering rates. Rate projections have shown that policymakers appear split over the outlook for cuts over the rest of the year, largely over differing views on how Trump's tariffs might affect inflation. It continues to say, quote, I don't think Powell will actually be fired, but it doesn't matter at this point, really, as the market will pretty soon realize he's synthetically out and start pricing what the next chair will do. And the next chair is supposedly going to be Bassett, if you've been paying attention. Also, I will say as well, I wanted to read that article because that article is making the case that the Fed is not independent, so to speak, but we're approaching it from a different angle. We've been approaching it from the angle of Bitcoin, and we've been approaching it from the angle of, listen, the hostility that is coming towards Bitcoin. Here's the Bitcoin Senator Cynthia Lummis.
So let me ask you a question. We're going to put some of your tweets up on the full screen. Do you think Mr. Trump made a mistake not firing Jay Powell?
No, I don't. I think that Chairman Powell should have been given a chance. He's had that chance. He's proven through the manner in which he conducted Choke Point 2.0, putting banks out of business, the way he's treated digital assets, the way he's treated bank supervision, and now the way he's dealing with $700 million in cost overruns at their office building. I think now there's enough evidence that he's worn out his welcome.
I love Lummis. She's so kind, and I love the way that she says it. He's warmed out his welcome, but her tweets, you know, what they were sharing earlier, were just absolutely point blank. It is past time.
Wait, play the meme.
It is past time. What meme?
I'll get it. I'll get it.
It is past time. Chair Powell puts the American people above his own ambitions and resigns. Next one, Chair Powell must resign. Jay Powell has repeatedly failed the American people and crippled America's competitive edge. It's time for actual leadership at the chair. Do you want to play it? And she's even memeing it too, bro. Jerome Powell and the Fed, when you ask him about choke point 2.0.
All right, come on.
So again, the reason I'm saying this, guys, is I'm trying to we're connecting stuff on today's episode. You know, Frank Corva at the White House yesterday, Simply Bitcoin on Wall Street, and again, big banks are admitting that the Fed is not independent. Bitcoiners have been saying that the Fed isn't independent for a while now because of their operations under Operation Choke Point 2.0 and how they're helping the party that is pro CBDC, which would be a continuation of the institution, right? As Bitcoiners, look, if that isn't independent, it shouldn't exist. It's plain and simple. We were pitched that the Fed was going to bring stability. It was going to control unemployment. It was going to control inflation. It has failed on every single one of those effing things. Every single one. We've had 2 massive world wars that were bankrolled by the money printer. Literally, this has been a catastrophe since 1913. It has been horrible. It did not work out. Okay? I'm not trying to say that it wasn't done in good intention, right? But you can't judge on the intention. You have to judge on the result. And the result has been catastrophic, especially for the younger generations. We can't afford anything. And it's literally because of central banking. Every time they print money, if you're in the lower middle classes and you save and earn in fiat, your savings and earnings get debased. If you're very wealthy, or if you're in the top echelons of society, and you have the privilege of being able to own assets, every time they print, the prices of those assets go up. And that causes more inequality. Literally, central banking is causing inequality. It is gutting the middle class. It is time to move on. It's not just about replacing Powell, who is, I can't say this clearly. I have to internalize Lummis, how she did it, who has acted questionably, and he perhaps hasn't been as independent as he should be. We need to take another step, and we need to say, let's end the Fed altogether. And I love Thomas Sowell. He did a video on this, right? When they asked him, like, so what do you replace the Fed with? And he's like, when you take out a tumor, do you replace it with something? Right? So what, did internet crash on us? Are we good? Are we still in line? I think we're good. We're good. We had a little bit of a pause. So yeah, yes, taking Powell out, getting Bessent in, someone who's more pro Bitcoin, great, fantastic. But I would say let's take it up a notch. Let's end the Fed, of course, democratically, peacefully, legally, using the legislative process. But I would want a president in there. I would want representatives in there that want to end the Federal Reserve itself, right? I think it failed as an institution. And the fact that people are claiming it's politically compromised should tell you even more why we should end it. It should give you even more ammunition as to why we should end it. Anyways, Opti, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to do it pretty quick. We've been saying this for a while, like the Fed is not independent, even though they have been saying that for a long time, trying to maintain that narrative. It's just when you look at the data, it's very clear that they're not. And I mean, look, I'm not the biggest fan of JP Morgan. We all know Jamie Dimon doesn't really like Bitcoin, but when they state the obvious, you're kind of like, okay, finally some people are saying the truth here. So I'm gonna pass it over to James here. James, what's your thoughts on this?
Oh man, I don't know. I kind of was thinking about through all of it, and I think there should be like a TikTok account for the Creature from Jekyll Island, like something that just breaks down that entire book. Probably is already, but in like bite-sized formats, just to kind of educate people on what the Fed is, who's involved with it, how people that were part of the government transferred over to the Fed, and people from the Fed transfer back and forth. It's all kind of just one big club, and just pretty much a mess. Yeah, we're not in it, as late George Carlin would say, R.I.P. But yeah, no, TikTok account for the Creatures from Jekyll Island. Let's someone get on that and get it out there.
Amen.
That's all I got to say.
All right, everybody, we're gonna get to the culture segment, and we're gonna be talking about the stamp seed. Guys, listen, self-custody is how you reclaim back your financial sovereignty, but with self-custody comes great responsibility, and you want to do self-custody right. And there's two components of self-custody, right? There's how are you storing your seed phrase? Are you writing it down? Are you stamping it into titanium? Because if you're writing it down on paper, paper's fickle. You don't want to write it down on paper. You want to stamp it into titanium. That's how we recommend it here at Simply Bitcoin. And of course, then you want to get yourself a hardware wallet. Of course, we recommend here the cold card. And that's how you take self-custody. But it comes with responsibility. You got to learn how to use these things, right? So we're going to be talking about the stamp seed and how that is the correct way, the proper way to store your seed phrase so that it survives the test of time. They've stress tested this thing in so many different ways, and we're going to cover all of that. So we'll be right back. We're going to hit the culture segment, and we're going to be talking about the stamp seed. Hammer time, baby.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitcoinBend.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Bend's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, and you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys, tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth, and join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinbend.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
All right, everybody, we are back, and we got James Stamp Seed Hammer time in the house, and we're going to be talking about the Stamp Seed kit. For anyone that is not aware what the Stamp Seed kit is, we are going to pull it up right now in the background. But essentially, ladies and gentlemen, when you create a Bitcoin seed phrase to store your Bitcoin, you got different options to store that data, that seed phrase, right? Obviously, usually what happens with the hardware wallets is that they they come with, a piece of paper, like a regular piece of paper, and that's fine and dandy, and that's okay. But do you guys remember the California fires? Right, like Malibu, like one of the most one of the most affluent, nicest places on planet Earth that you'd not think would burn to the ground in a freak accident. And imagine if you just had your seed phrase in a safe on a piece of paper, like that paper would have been just poof, like, and how do you protect yourself against that? You store your seed phrase the proper way. And you do that by using the stamp seed. And the reason we recommend stamp seed versus a lot of the other solutions is it's just one plate, right? So a lot of the other solutions, there's like little letters that you put in, those letters could fall out. There's things that you pull in that you could, there's different variations. This is simple. It's literally a titanium plate. You get a hammer. There's letter stamping tools, and you literally hammer each letter into the titanium plate, letter by letter. Like it's pretty simple. And no, you don't do that. You don't send your seed phrase to them. You do this in your home, right? So you buy the kit once, you keep the hammer for life, you keep the letter stamping tools for life, and then you can get as many plates as you want. And by the way, they started making custom plates recently. So let's talk about all the different tests. I'm going to hand it off to James, because you guys really stress testing this is, I feel like it's underplaying.
Yes.
The torture that the things that you guys have made these plates go through, these titanium plates, to ensure that they survive any type of catastrophe. So James, the floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah. Just to hit on a couple points, like I think the biggest theme with seed phrase storage is you want to have it on metal. And when it comes to metal, more pieces equals more points of failure, which is why we like to have one solid plate where you're actually, like you said, hammering those letters into it. There's no what I call like little letter tiles, like Scrabble tiles that go in. It's just crap. It's a terrible item to have. When pieces of metal are layered, heat expansion just comes into effect and things separate and things fall out. So there's a lot of issues there. You have corrosion issues. It's just not good. So more pieces equals more points of failure, and you want something that's a smaller form factor, something that's relatively thin that you could hide under a rug, in a wall, or wherever. I don't want to give away all the good spots. And then as far as testing goes, it's commercial grade titanium. It's going to survive nearly triple the average house fire. So California wildfires, it'd be able to survive a scenario such as that. It could also survive things like corrosion, because titanium oxidizes. That's its natural state. So it's pretty much having like an invisible layer of like a force field around the titanium, as like crazy as that sounds, but that's what causes it not to rust. That's why it's preferred, hardware to use in aeronautics and space. So along with that, obviously it's not paper, so it's not going to become issued to a damp environment. The ink is going to fade. Ink is going to run when it gets wet. It's going to smudge. It's just an issue. Paper Bitcoin's bad. Paper seed storage is bad. So when you're buying those hardware wallets, they're coming with that paper card, and literally that's not meant for, in my opinion, long-term cold storage, right? That's meant to simply transfer onto metal when you have a chance, because if you're setting up your hardware wallet, you're not going to like literally stamp every word as you're going. It's probably smart to write those down first, but quickly transfer it over to metal. And that's what's cool about like our plates here is I designed this to be the size of a Post-it. So it's actually the size of a standard Post-it. It's nice and thin. It's easy to hide. It resembles, I guess, as close to paper as possible. Right? It's a thin little square like a Post-it, but rather than writing on it, you take those letter stamps, which are like, for anyone that's kind of confused or doesn't understand, like what are metal stamps, picture you're hammering a nail. Instead of the tip of that nail being a sharp point, the tip of that nail is a letter. And you have the entire alphabet, and you simply tap in your words into that metal. It's not going anywhere once it's there. So, and there's other options out there that you might think, that people do use. You can engrave things in there, but I tend to find that gets a little bit messy. It's a little ineligible, and it's not legible, rather. And if that plate would become scratched, or say you were in the California wildfires and your plate survived the fire, but on the way from your house crashing down, it received all these scratches. Those engraving markings could look very similar to scratches. So, I know it sounds kind of crazy to think through these things, but that's what we do as Bitcoiners, right? It's easy buying Bitcoin. Sometimes it's hard holding it, but for me, it's easy holding it. The hard part is like, where do you like, what's your setup? How do you hide things? Like, is everything set up as perfect as it possibly could be? Are there any weaknesses or vulnerabilities? So, when you're holding for the decades, those kind of ideas pop in your head. So it's nice to not have to really worry about those and have to redo your entire setup. And what else? I mean, there are ways to, like, I know a lot of folks I speak with at conferences, the two biggest questions we get are like, where do I hide the plate? But to me, that question is not exclusive to titanium. Like, where would you hide the paper card, right? So it's not really a matter of that. And then another thing is, people like to know if are there ways to split up the words? Should you make copies of the words? To me, a lot of that's like personal preference. We do have some options on our website that enable people to split up their words as they see fit. Whether it's, your multi-sig is naturally built in, for one. That's like where, to me, the most robust security is going to be multi-vendor, multi-sig, meaning different wallets from different companies, and then something like multi-sig. Of course, with Cold Card, you have the two chips from two different vendors, so you kind of have that built in. But with our setup is perfect for multi-sig. Like, as you said, you get the tools, you get everything you need with the plate. So you're only buying the setup through the plate once you have your tools. So if you have something like a 3 of 5 multi-sig, it could get very expensive to purchase 5 setups altogether. Whereas in this case, you're buying the setup once and then add a plate, $28, use code simply, what is it, like $22, 15 off. So yeah, I mean, it's naturally built for multi-sig. Like, that's where this plate and kit really shines. That's why we have 3 packs and 5 packs. Seems to be our biggest customers. And then there's other methods, sharding with a D, guys, and Shamir backup. And, you could split it up however you want, really. I don't recommend really splitting too often. I like to do one plate.
Could you talk about the custom plates that you guys just released? Because you essentially, guys, you can upload an image onto stampseed.com, and you can get essentially it custom engraved. Personally, what we've done here at Simply is we've ordered different variations of Opti, and we've put them, around the house, of Opti surprised, Opti confused, Opti sad. And yes, so that's what we do. But again, you could do whatever you want, and you can put a custom image on there. We also have
So what I'm hearing, no Nico plate, only Opti plates. Let's go.
I am building.
So the Nico one is actually it's a special edition one because it's titanium, but the Nico is actually in gold.
You are fake news.
So the Nico is infused with gold and titanium.
You are fake news.
But
we could do a Nico one with the orange glasses, because a lot of our plates we could get orange to come through the titanium. No. That's the cool part about it. Depending on how you heat it, you get color. So it's an option, but the custom plates are great. And as you were going through the site, a lot of people probably saw a lot of the artist plates. That's like one side of the brand. That's like just for Bitcoin artists that we collaborated with. The back of this plate is blank, right? So you can kind of do anything with it. So right here, we have like an open source design that we just listed that guy. But, there's a lot of different collaborations out there. But if you want to make something for yourself, you could upload it here. And it's not like you could literally do anything. It's not just like someone just did one recently. It was actually a picture of like him and his daughter, which was really cool. Like, I don't know if that's like some sort of inheritance planning, but it was a really cool idea. It's not just going to be like having a cool design on the back of it. You could actually build something into that design that is a hint or a code or something encrypted or a label for that wallet or anything. I mean, you could do a QR code too, right? If you'd really like to put your public key on that side, or even your XPub. Well, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of why the custom is there. Like I said, the entire back of the plate is blank. If you want something more discreet, you can utilize that custom feature to do something discreet. Maybe you want to put something on the back of this that doesn't doesn't say it's Bitcoin. You know, you want to write, high voltage danger. You could put that on the back of this, screw it into a wall, cover it with sheetrock, just kind of cover all grounds there. So that's one thing. And then another cool thing right now is just like you could stamp like letters into titanium, you could stamp the Bitcoin logo. We have the Bitcoin logo as well. You could stamp coins with that, kind of spread the word when you're purchasing things with fiat and getting change back or giving change. And that's actually free with like every order. We did that anytime there's an all-time high. We're just going to keep it on for a little while. So, with your tools, not only do you could stamp your seed, but you could stamp Bitcoin logos.
Fantastic.
Into metal,
James, could you talk a little bit about how you guys dumped it into the ocean for a certain period of time and it survived?
Yeah. So we're in New York as well, on Long Island, surrounded by water. So make the most of it. Take advantage of that feature and test the plate in the salt water. So we had a plate fully stamped. It's in the highlights on our X page. And we basically put that plate in the water, tied to a fishing line, tied it to a friend's pole on his balcony, and just left it there for an entire year. I mean, automatically, I know nothing's going to happen to it. My biggest fear was this thing's going to get swept away and lost or swallowed by some sort of sea creature or whatever, lost in a boating accident perhaps. But the plate survived. It was fine, completely covered with algae and muck and things like that. And we pulled this thing out, and it kind of looked like a swamp thing coming out of the Long Island Sound there. Took everything off, cleaned it up. The plate looked cleaner as anything. If there wasn't a video for it, no one would believe that the plate was ever that dirty. There's no rust at all. Like you would think if a plate was in salt water for a year, it would rust. With titanium, it doesn't. And when something has just one solid piece, there's no nooks and crannies for things to kind of get in and hide and potentially seize up your device. So when you kind of juxtapose that with putting steel in the water and something with multi pieces and tiles, we probably should have tested that side by side. Maybe I'll do that next. That's the next test, actually. We're going to do that. We'll see
if
one survives and one doesn't.
First, James is going to be taking a trawler to the Mariana Trench. They will be lowering down a stamp seed plate 36,000 feet under the ocean, and we're going to be checking if it survives.
Yeah, we'll get a pressure test while we're at it too, I guess, right? I guess that's 2 in 1. But we're always trying to think of different things to kind of test it out with. We've done steamrollers.
Space. I think next is
very hot fires.
Nothing
can break it.
And also too, like with the pressure as well, because there's nothing inside. Like usually when it relates to pressure related things, it's because there's an atmosphere inside, right? But because it's just a metal plate, right? I'm pretty sure you could just lower it down very, very deep into the ocean. And nothing's gonna happen to it.
And like what was it, that Ocean Gate capsule that crushed underwater, made of titanium? But it's not like one solid piece. Like a solid piece, nothing would happen to this. It'd be fine. It's there's no hull. There's nothing layered or sandwiched. It's just a plate. It's really
the Ocean
kind of boring.
Gate tragedy. It was carbon fiber, and then the front and the back were made of titanium. Front and the back, nothing happened, but the carbon fiber it compressed, right? Which it was horrific. It was terrible. But anyways, guys, go check out stampseed.com. You guys got to think long term. Yes, it's a lot, just getting a piece of paper and writing it down. Like you're like, oh, that's so convenient. Like, why do I have to do this? You got to think about, I love the way that NVK puts it. Think about Bitcoin as if it was worth 10 times as much as it's worth today. Right. And this is where the stamp seed comes in. I personally use it. That's how I of course, like I multi-sig, geographically separated seed phrases, and I have lots of tips and tricks and things, and everyone has their own personal stuff. But, my seed phrases are on a stamp seed, right? Because again, it's titanium. Like I know it's going to survive. Opti's the same, and again, I highly, highly recommend it. I know James is the same. I'm making that assumption. You got to use the stamp seed. Take your seed phrase storage seriously. Go to stampseed.com today. And again, you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. Opti and I have to go catch a flight. Today is July 18, 2025. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. It was a very special week for us at Simply, getting to experience this at the NASDAQ yesterday. Very special week for Bitcoin with the crypto week, the legislative process. Frank Corva at the White House. That was fantastic. And it's been an honor to end the week strong with our buddy James from Stamp Seed Hammer Time joining us on the Friday show. So I'm your host, Nico. This is my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, who's squished in here. And
I should have met you guys at the hotel. It looks like there's a little bit more room to fit
James in here. And Opti's sitting in the middle aisle. And, of course, our guest today is James from Stamp Seed. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you on Monday for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Take care, everybody. Love you all.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.